against this because of our immunity following vaccination.
Well, let's zoom in then on the latest extension. We're joined by Business Unity South Africa President Bonang Mohale and Tourism Business Council of South Africa CEO Tshivhiwa Tshivhengwa. Good evening to both of you. Thanks for your time. And Mr. Mohale, let me begin with you. It seems that government is stuck when it comes to the type of regulations that they need to put in place before they're fully comfortable to end the state of disaster. Do you think it is justifiable that it's been extended yet again?
I think it's understandable, McCarthy, even though I think it's an opportunity missed because the economy does need to be freed up so that we don't continue to kill more people out of hunger and starvation than those that are actually killed by the virus. I think it's going to be absolutely sad, tragic, and regrettable as a result of this extension if we don't use it as an opportunity to use all the vaccines that are available to boost people that have been fully vaccinated, but also for those people that are still a little bit hesitant. Lastly, I think we have also missed an opportunity where, unlike Europe, where they are probably at 90% full vaccination status, and the Americas, the high-income countries at about 60.4%, the low-income countries at 4.6%. South Africans, by 3 weeks ago, 32 million doses dispensed, where as a people, we are now closing the vaccination sites, a number of them, and most that are still open, they close at 3 o'clock, they don't open on Sunday. This is the time where we should be opening 24/7 to make sure that when all of us have reached herd immunity, then it becomes easier for politicians and the president to open up the economy. McCarthy?
Mr. Tshivhengwa, let me bring you in here. The response then of the tourism sector to this?
Well, thank you for having me. For us, there is just, few aspects that are quite important that we believe that government should have dealt with and include them on the extension of the Disaster Management Act. We have been talking for the past 3 months about allowing international travelers that are fully vaccinated to come into the country without presenting a PCR, negative PCR test, and of course without showing any symptoms. And we've been talking about this through various channels, including NEDLAC, we've got NetJoins, we've written directly to the Minister of Health, and we were hoping that, today we're going to announce that we are removing the negative PCR requirement for the fully vaccinated travelers that are coming into the country, as well as South Africans that are fully vaccinated that leave the country and come back. But we don't have anything of sort. It simply means that the other countries around us, including Namibia, we just removed the PCR test requirement today, Botswana, the Seychelles, Kenya. It means that they're going to gain an advantage of us. And, for us, it's a disaster. The fact that we were not able to really do away with a negative PCR test is going to set us back. We are not going to be competitive. People are going to be booking in the next coming week those destinations that have done so. So for us, the extension is okay, but we could have done better in terms of, changing some of the regulation that we've been talking about. And by the way, there's no scientist who has came to us and said, well, what we are saying regarding international inbound visitors that are fully vaccinated being allowed to come into the country is a wrong thing. So we are not in a good state in terms of the tourism recovery, given what's going on at the moment.
And Mr. Mohale, that really is at the heart of the issue, right? That while we are, taking our time in making, whether it's amendments to existing legislation or introducing new regulations, the reality is that the rest of the world is not waiting on South Africa to fully open up. As long as we are not fully opened up, people will take their money elsewhere.
Let me also agree with Tshivhengwa, my brother, that tourism matters to us because pre-COVID, 10.2 million visitors visited our shores, contributing 9.8% to the national GDP. It employs 3.2 million people, 75% of whom are women. It matters because we have always said vaccine rollout is a race because the country that can say we have defeated and therefore uprooted this pandemic first will be the country that reaps the pent-up global tourism demand. And we have said tourism matters purely and simply because, especially us as South Africans, 60.1 million of us, more than half are living below the poverty datum line. We saw with a stipend of 350 when it was announced by the president, 14 million people applied, 11 million were granted, over and above 17 million who are already on social security, therefore increasing that number to 28 million, whereas those that are gainfully employed are actually 16 million. And we have lost probably 2 million jobs. It matters because the single, both systemic and systematic risk is youth unemployment at 74.9%. If we thought that the 2 weeks in July of looting are over, we are kidding ourselves until and unless we have solved this youth unemployment. As I end McAfee, when young people of military age are sitting at home twiddling their thumbs with nothing to do, not only are we asking for trouble, but we are actively inviting it.
Mr. Tshivhengwa, at this point, what are the options that are available again to the tourism sector as being one of those that's been hit hard by the continuation of these regulations? I can think also of sporting that would not particularly be happy because it's not due to a lack of lobbying that we have seen. Others, including the COSATU within the Tripartite Alliance, has been lobbying heavily for government to follow the scientists and to effectively do what the Ministerial Advisory Committee has advised them to do, which is end the state of the disaster.
Well, there's only one thing that we can do, and that is, to allow, the visitors who are fully vaccinated to flow into the country and to support the economy of this country and to create jobs both in urban areas and rural areas. And again, we have lobbied for sporting events with various, unions and associations to say that we need to allow for the sporting events to be to open. Sports tourism is very important to us. When people move around and follow their clubs, they stay at our facilities. They use transport. They fly around. It means that it boosts the recovery of tourism. And we've been hard at work to do the lobbying. We have talked to all the right people, but they seem to not make a decision. And they seem to be, still consulting and, pretty much walking around, and no one seemed to understand, even within the ranks, who should be making this decision and when it should be made. And we have provided ample opportunities and examples in terms of how sports is going to impact the livelihoods of many informal business owners who are there in many places, cooking on the side of the street, selling merchandises and so forth and so on. In the tourism space, we have talked about many people in the informal business of tourism. If you go to Durban and you look at the people that are there by the beach selling ice cream, and selling, T-shirts and so forth and so on. Those are the people that are heavily impacted. And that's why we say there's only one thing we can do, and it's within our control. This is not something that we need to ask anyone to do. It's to change the regulations as they are, allow visitors to come into the country, allow tourism to operate safely as we've done before, allow people to go back to the stadiums. It's there. There's a proof that this works, and we need to embrace it, and we need to follow science. Unless scientists are saying that is a bad idea and they give compelling evidence, there isn't anything that's stopping government to make that decision tonight. And we believe that that has to be done immediately. That's the only one thing that we can do, nothing else. And the delays that we have, we've looked at the studies across, various markets. In the UK, we're simply saying that, 47% of those that are willing to come to South Africa, they're deterred by what we're doing. And therefore, we're losing money. We could be supporting 100,000 jobs if we make the right decision. And we're imploring government to really look at these regulations. Yes, the state of disaster is extended, but what are the details? What are we changing on the regulations? And what we've been saying is that change the sporting, make more people to go to the sporting events, conferences and exhibitions, and of course, allow those that are fully vaccinated to be able to travel to South Africa without requiring a negative PCR test. It's that simple. We can work ourselves out of this misery if we're allowed to operate, and that's what we're asking for.
Mr. Tshivhengwa, let's leave it there for tonight. Mr. Mohale, thank you too for your time. When News at Prime continues, hundreds have been displaced due to flooding